Thanks for tuning in today. I am Domenick Muoio, the Hunt Test and Field Trial Program Manager here at the United Kennel Club. And on this episode, I get the rare privilege to go around the whole HRC International Grand and interview judges at each one of the sites and get a little bit of insight as to how they set up their tests and where dogs tend to struggle, and it could give you some good insight on how to go home and train and get to that next level. And along with that, I also get to sit down with the Grand Committee Chairperson, Tracey Stubbs, and talk to him a little bit about the Grand and how it's grown and how they make such a big event go off relatively seamlessly. Hope you enjoy.
You're listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast, celebrating hunting dog heritage, competition, and community. United Kennel Club has been the hunting dog sports home for coonhounds, beagles, retrievers, pointers, cur, feist, and more for over 125 years.
I'm Domenick Muoio, and I have the pleasure of being down here in St. Louis for the 2024 HRC International Grand. And I'm joined in the truck cab by Tracey Stubbs. Tracey is the Grand Committee Chairman. He's done a lot of great things with this event, and he's got the help of a lot of great people behind him. And it's always a joy to get to sit down and talk with him. Tracey, I've been able to get to all the sites and see all of these tests we've got here, and we're definitely gonna identify some grand champions by the end of the fifth series. We have 10 flights, and the Grand seems like it keeps growing and growing. What are our numbers looking like for this year's Fall Grand?
Well, thanks for having me on again, Dom. We have, at the close of entries, we had 981 dogs that were entered in the event. And I think with scratches, which is injuries prior to getting here, and heat cycles and, illnesses on the dogs, we're down to around 900 dogs to start the event. So about 90 dogs each flight.
Man, those are some pretty good numbers there. I know Omar used to always talk about the Grand growing to over 1,000 dogs. And I think a few years ago, he was able to see pretty close to that. I think it was Music City. Y'all had him moving around some. I know he'd be proud to see where this event's gotten to.
He is. I get to talk and converse with him regularly, and he's just amazed at the growth that HRC continues to have. And how the Grand has grown and prospered and represents, the retrieving breeds and the versatile breeds. And, it just gets better and better. And we've identified all these great Grand champions and the breeding programs it's helped establish.
Absolutely. It helps benefit, you have all these different breeds here, and it really does help benefit those breeding pools and help better each one of those breeds for the retriever world. Now, for those who might be tuning in that aren't as familiar with what the International Grand is, what's your elevator speech on explaining what this event is?
All right. The Grand is the national event for HRC. We hold it twice a year, and what it is something that shows the abilities of a dog beyond the weekend champion. And, you have to be a hunting retriever champion to participate in the Grand. And so that dog is already on the local level proved that he's a champion and a great gun dog and, represents the breeds well, whatever it is. And we come here to the Grand and up the standard. It has its own set of rules, its own levels of difficulty, and its own standard of performance. And so it's better than the weekend dog. But, every dog that comes to participate in the Grand is already a champion. So, that speaks well for the program in itself. So the Grand is held twice a year, like I say. To become a Grand champion, you have to have 2 Grand passes, and then you have to have the additional 300 points at the championship level to become a Grand champion. So you got to continue campaigning locally and at the national level. So.
Yeah, and I think the magnitude of what this event does get a little bit lost if you've never gotten the chance to see it. But like I've mentioned, there's 10 different sites, and each one of them just smack dab full of all these different trucks and trailers of some of the best dogs from across the country and from Canada. And I don't know if you guys have any other countries represented this year, but I mean, that in itself it's kind of astonishing to see the entire country of hunting retrievers come together here.
And that's right. We have dogs from all across the U.S. and Canada, from coast to coast and border to border. It's amazing that we can come here and compete, and everyone understand the standard and have these great dogs. And it continues to grow, and I don't think we've plateaued yet. It takes a great set of grounds and a great host club, Gateway Retriever Club here, Gateway Hunting Retriever Club here in St. Louis. They do an incredible job. Like I said, this is their second Grand that they've hosted here. So they just do, it's all volunteer work, and they just come in here and pour their hearts at it. Ben Coons, the local president, we've been in conversation for a year and a half working on this. And, our goal is always out in the front that we look great and we work through any hiccups we have, and they are committed to it. And man, it's been a great event so far.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, everything seems like it's going pretty smoothly. I mean, I don't think any national event can go off without a single hiccup.
That's right.
But it's about how you overcome those little things. And, it seems like by having a nice local club and an active local club, there's nothing really that you guys can't overcome and haven't overcome.
That's right. It's the Region 6 clubs have hosted a lot of the recent Grands. There's several local clubs that jump in here, but the Region 6 clubs support each other. And then you've had an outpouring of support from the surrounding regions also. So, there's a lot of workers. It takes a lot of folks and a lot of members here to pull this thing off. And remembering that everyone is volunteering their work. And so it's a pretty cool event to be associated with.
Absolutely. Now, as far as your judging panel goes, do you have any first-time judges this year? Or?
Yep, we have 8 first-time judges. We always try to, you're trying to always expand that grand judge pool. To judge the Grand, you have to be a AA licensed finished judge. And so these are some of the cream of the crop across our organization already coming here. And, the committee invites those judges, and, we're pretty scrutinizing on who we bring here. And, we have someone that's a team player, and, that they can learn. You take a judge that's got a lot of judging experience locally, and you bring them here, and they've got to be a team player with the Grand to keep that consistency across all the sites. And, it's a great group of judges, man. They've been fantastic since the moment they've arrived.
Well, good deal. Like I said, I've gotten to see all the sites, and it's so cool to get to see how each one of these judges is able to take a piece of property and really make it their own and put their own spin on it, and do so while maintaining some level of consistency, because since the Grand's grown to the point that it's at, every dog's not going to see the same 4 sites.
That's right.
And so you guys are able to somehow blend that uniqueness and that flavor that each judge can put on a piece of land, while also maintaining consistency across, 2 different sites that one dog may not see, but that they're being judged to the same standard and seeing comparable conditions.
Yeah, there's always the human factor in it, but Dean Roy and Jimbo Earls do a great job in the judges seminar. So we bring the judges in, several days ahead of time, and we bring them in, and we have a judges seminar that we've built over the years. Long before I became involved with the Grand, that seminar was there, and it's developed and evolved and gotten more consistent with technology and our experiences. And we give them the seminar, and Dean and Jimbo have done it for about 8 or 9, almost 10 years now. So it's a consistent seminar, and you see it in the judging. And then each site will have a committee member there that's to help the judges be consistent across the board. And then when as every event has a hunt test committee, we are the Grand Hunt Committee, and we go and approve the test. And, our job is to make sure that we have the same level of difficulty, but fairness across all the sites. And so when you have different water structures and different land topography, that can be challenging, but judges are always come here with the working together attitude to build a good test. And, they understand if we say, hey, we need a little more, we need a little less, to be consistent across the test, they understand, and they're on board to make it happen. So it's an incredible feat, and I could never express how proud I am of the group and everybody that's involved in working at the Grand. So, they are totally committed to the event and the organization, and it's an amazing group to be associated with.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things is, as a retriever guy, getting to come here. Now, I haven't trained a dog up to the Grand level, and I'll say yet, but we'll see if we get there. But I walk away with I feel like a magnitude of new knowledge and new thoughts going into training whenever I leave the Grand, because I'm able to see, so many different looks and talk with each one of these judges and find out why they put certain birds where they did and what factors go into play there. And you start to see some things that maybe you didn't think about. Like, there's going to be your obvious factors, but then there's going to be, some subtle things, subtle suction, or the dog's been long twice, and now we've got this check down bird, and we're, that's meant to get in their head a little bit. And I think it makes you a better trainer and a better handler just to get to come here and look at the Grand, even if you don't have a dog with you.
Sure. I have been to 30 plus Grands in some capacity over my HRC span here. And every Grand that I've been to, without exception, I've learned something to take home and bring to my dog training and my training groups. And you look at things and concepts that you really never think about. And, why would I train on that? Because you might see that at the Grand someday, that short bird that's right out there in the decoys. And, these are the best dogs in the country, in the U.S. and Canada, as far as hunting dogs. And that's, that's my biased opinion, but, that we're pretty proud of those dogs. And, you come here and you go, man, I would never throw a 17-yard mark in my training. Mm-hmm. Well, you better, because you come to the Grand and there's one right over there at the Avery site it's pretty tough, and some great handlers and great dog teams have had some struggles there, and it's laying right out there where they can see it. So, but if we were hunting in that hole, you've seen that hole, we would kill some ducks right there.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's pretty cool concept. And then we've got marks over here that are stretched out to the maximum with every technical concept that you could think of, and you got to be able to do that too.
Yeah.
So it's a total gun dog. So
absolutely. One of the things that I've kind of mentioned with some of my friends around here is it seems like the theme on the land test this year is mowed strips. That's I like it.
Yeah, it's that's the grounds. The staff here at the Bush Wildlife, they manicure these for upland hunting grounds and different things that we've asked them to do. To keep consistent, we've tried to stay out of the crop fields. Crop fields are rough on dogs sometimes, and to sit here and run 100 dogs a day in a cornfield, we want to be safe and make sure we can keep that consistency. So we're in these rolling fields and grasslands, and so you checkerboard them up, and they've mowed them out there. I think one of the funnier comments I heard is the local guys told the land maintenance guys to go out there and drive around like a drunken sailor, and and there's no rhyme or reason to the patterning he did, and what a concept field that it made, and truly is a tough marking field. The Grand dogs are making it through it, and it's sorting them out as the Grand does. One of the things I like to back up about the Grand is actually, there's a pass fail. And so when at any time that you are not satisfactory in your performance, you are out and your event is over. So it's an elimination. When you're out, you're out. There's no more running. And so the Grand will sort those dogs out. The point system, you need the points to carry and the performance to carry. So it is an elimination event of some sort, even though it is a hunting standard, but we're here to sort out the Grand champions. So
absolutely. And, I talk about the mowed strips in the fields. I mean, that's also something that I'm going home trying to figure out how I can find that.
So you can drive around in the field like a drunken sailor, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that, if I'm going out with a training group or some of my buddies on one of their fields, you think, okay, we're just going to mow it down. We're going to get the hay off of it. Hey, I just cut the field. Let's go train. And you don't think, hey, if you're going to cut that field, go ahead and cut in some strips first, and then we'll train, and then you can go finish it.
That's right.
I've got a couple of buddies that they farm hay, and I mean, that's doable.
Oh yeah.
And, it's just not been something I've thought to ask, but, seeing it here at the Grand and seeing how prevalent it is, I've seen it at a test here or there, but it's not super common. And like you said, it's one of those things that you should train on it. That way,
Sure.
if you do come across it, your dog, it's not the first time your dog's seeing that. Your dog's mind's not going to get blown. But, that's a way that I think I'll be a better handler and a better sight setup person when I'm going to train, is by seeing this.
Yep. Just a lot of different concepts, not, and all retriever venues have great training and the things, but the Grand is that's a hunting dog, and that's what we're looking for here. So it's varied, and we stagger the rotations and manipulate things there where you're not just stuck in this one kind, because of the different tests. Nobody's going to run the same test. And so break it up into smaller hunting ponds, and you may get one big open pond, and then you might get one that's a tight little duck hole, wood duck type hole. So it adds some excitement to it, and just a different variance across the board. So.
Sure. And I know we talked about the consistency and the judging and the consistency in the sites, but I'm sure you go across these certain sites and you think one's going to be, maybe a little bit tougher than another. But were there any that kind of surprised you that you thought, yeah, this site should be, pretty straightforward, that it's catching a few dogs off guard?
It always does. It's hard to single out one, but there's every site you'll be like, man, I really didn't think that bird would give them that much trouble there. And it'll be, something really simple. And that's just, or you go, wow, that turned out to be, more technical than I thought it was at first. And, in every element, we like to separate out the marks, and, where every mark has its own elements and factors, so that, we're not piling everything in together, and just some concepts that we like to see in general at the Grand for consistency. And, it varies. Wind conditions can vary it. Lighting conditions can vary, things one day they're just smoking it, and then we get a cloudy day, and, it's different, and they switch over to something else. So that's the cool part of the 5 days. So.
Yep. And, it's interesting seeing, like you said, just the wind conditions. I can be sitting at one site and watch things completely shift. I think I was over at, I think it was Priefert, and they were talking about how in the morning they were, dogs were starting to struggle because there was no wind.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get later in that afternoon, I was watching dogs that were, pretty fat of a mark, and pretty consistently, if they were fat, in one spot, is almost like there's a little interstate sign that said turn left here, and they would just take an immediate sharp left and go straight
that
to
scent
the bird.
cone and go right over there and front foot it.
Yep.
So
that's, if you're running in the morning and you made it through, maybe the next day you're going to catch that wind in the afternoon, just on how things fall. But yeah, it really does start to average out once you get through those
Sure.
4 and that 5th series too.
The key to the Grand is just to survive till the next series. That's what your goal is. And once you're completed with that series, you forget it and move on, and just keep focusing on moving forward and to get to that upland day. So,
yep. So tell me, I know St. Louis has hosted the Grand once before. I think that was just before my time. How does this compare to back then? Because that would have been right about at the time that COVID things were starting to settle a little bit. What do the numbers look like compared to there, and what are these sites looking like? Are there any sites that are similar that have been, tweaked to be novel, or?
They've just here at Bush Wildlife, there's obviously more personnel working than when we came here before, and so they've been able to manicure the grounds, and the staff here has just been incredible. And like I say, we've been working on this for a year and a half, and, they've just accommodated everything that we've asked, and gone above and beyond helping us here. And, so the grounds are perfect. These grounds are not traditional Grand grounds in the water, because we love that running water and all that, but we've been able to cut corners of ponds and find it to time manage. And, so it works out, and that's the cool thing about this place is, even though it's, kind of designed for field trials, we still find room for us to run there and put on quality tests. So, the sites, we're doubling up on some of the sites that we used previously, but, fresh set of judges, a fresh new test. And, there's the land sites, there's several of the land sites that we did not use before. And I think 3 of the water sites we haven't used before. So, it's new looks, and even the ones that are older, brushed, mowed the brush around it, opened them up, and so they really look different.
Yeah.
So,
and like you said, it's pretty incredible what you can do with the same piece of land, the same little box that you put test up in, and have different judges, and it be a completely different look. You could have the line in the same spot and completely change a test up.
Every judge brings their own uniqueness in here, and so they can look at something, and we just give them a direction, a start point and a direction we'd like to run to manage lighting and the logistics part of it. And then we kind of walk away and work with them. And when they get something, we come back and talk about it and work as a hunt committee and help them build a great test. So.
Yeah. And maybe for those who aren't as familiar with the grand scoring system, could you kind of go over that in short on how that's done over here?
Sure. You've got there's 3 levels of scoring: a satisfactory, marginal, and unsatisfactory, and it's based on a 2-1-0 scale. So you need to have at least 2 points in each series. So a 1 and a 1 to carry to the second series. And then that's the only marginal scores that you can get. So from then on out, you have to be satisfactory in every series after that till the upland. And then once we get to the upland, it'll go back to just a pass fail. That upland is very energetic and demanding. It takes a good dog, a grand level dog, to switch from being under control in the retriever sites to now going out and hunting on its own and still being at a grand level control when the flush comes up. So once you get to the 5th series, we go back to just everybody's back on 2s, and it's a pass or fail. So
sure. And so to expand on that a little bit, if you're in one series and something happens to the blind and you got to handle to that blind or that mark, and you have to handle it to a mark, and you get through those 3 birds, and you turn around, you run your blind, and you get a few cast refusals and you're marginal on your blind,
Yeah. So if you have to handle to the area of a fall, meaning your dog was unproductive in finding the bird, it didn't go to the fall area and hunt, or it left the fall area and has to be aided by you to get that mark picked up, then that's a marginal score. That's unsatisfactory. And it's a marginal. And then so that would be a score of 1. So that brings you down. You can never gain points back in the grand. So once you're marked down, you can never gain those points back. So you would get a score of 1 from each of the judges. And then if you went over and you had a blind and it was kind of a weaker blind, and it was a marginal blind, and they scored you 1, well, in this math, 1 and 1 equals 0, so it would be 2 marginal scores would put you out.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it goes without saying, if you're running 1 mark and you got to handle to it, and you got another one that you got to handle to, you're not even getting to the blind.
So you're not going to pick up the blind. You will be out. So.
Yeah. So I know it's a little bit different. People always talk about the weird math behind it, the 1 + 1 = 0.
That's it.
I think it really shows once you get to the end of that 5th day and you guys are handing out ribbons, when you look at some of the dogs that made it through, the very few dogs that make it through on all 2s, it really helps them stand above. And then it also shows that those dogs they had one little trip up, but they stayed clean for 4 more series. I mean, that's just as impressive. The consistency that's needed in these dogs it's kind of mind-blowing to come out here, run 4 days in a row, and just be as consistent as they were, the first morning.
Well, that's the difference of a grand champion. That's the excellence that you're looking for. So it's that, like you say, that dog that gets a marginal score on day 1, and then he just holds it the rest of the 4 series, and they're just above and beyond after that. So they're still playing. It doesn't eliminate them,
Mm-hmm.
But if you're running 4 series and you're unsatisfactory and marginal in at least 2, well, that's 50%. So that's not really what we're looking for. So it's tough, and it's heartbreaking at times. And I think all of our judges and all of our committee folks that are here, everyone is rooting for you to win. They want you there on Wednesday afternoon to shake hands and we come in here and the judges and the committee works to set up these tests and the level of difficulty at the Grand. And if you can make it through, we are so proud for you, because we gave it our best and you gave it your best, and we have those Grand champions in the end. So
absolutely.
And there's no shame in going out at the Grand. I mean, it's tough. It's meant to be tough. It's above and beyond. So if you came here, it takes courage just to step to the line. So
sure.
Don't be ashamed. Go home and work.
I mean, there's a reason you guys give out there's the second series ribbon,
That's
right?
it.
There's a reason that exists.
Yeah, it's tough just to get to those. So,
absolutely.
But it's meant to be. It's the pinnacle of our program. So,
absolutely. Well, do you have any last bits of advice for those who are looking to run your spring Grand coming up here, or maybe even next year's fall?
Well, we're going to Whistle HRC in Wisconsin, on the Wisconsin-Illinois border, and they've hosted the Grand. I believe this will be their third Grand that they've hosted there at the Richard Bong Recreational Area. It's a field trial grounds. Whistle is a great club. They always do a great job at the Grand. A lot of members, a lot of hard workers. It's great grounds there also. Exciting time. It's in Memorial Day weekend, so it's a late spring Grand. So you have plenty of time, no excuses. And enter up and come on. It'll be a good time up there with A.G. Shaw and Kenny Reinert and the group at Whistle. So
yeah, and it kind of makes me a little bit excited, because back home, my North Carolina clubs, it seems like their tests are always Grand tune-up tests. They're always right there the last couple of weeks before the Grand, whether it's spring or fall. And so having a late spring Grand might help me out a little bit, run the dogs and some finish tests. And I mean, the judges aren't supposed to be judging those tests to a finish level or anything like that. But, you might see a little bit of a tougher test, because they know that people are gearing up for the Grand and giving them a good look for it.
There's a great number of trainers and participants, amateur and pros, that are from the East Coast in our circuit over there. And so, it's you feel the tension, and that's kind of the thing there is everybody wants to get out and run some tests, which is a good idea, whether they're pre-Grand tests or not. That's not what your goal is, but you want to get out and run some tests. And if you're traveling and you're passing on that weekend really consistently, and you're not having to handle on marks, that sure is a good feeling when you're coming to the Grand. So and it goes across the country. You get into the Mississippi Flyway clubs and all those regions there. Everybody, it just starts the excitement. So we're gonna enjoy that excitement all spring next year. So yep. With that late Grand. So.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and glad to hear it's a little bit later too, because that might mean I don't have to pack as much heavy cold gear. It's supposed to be a pretty sharp one up north this winter. So
yep. So it's and we're looking forward to it. And then fall of next year we'll be back down in Nashville, and that's always a good time down there and a big event. So we're looking for a couple of large Grands here coming in there, and great clubs to be with, and a great time. So,
well, Tracey, I appreciate you hopping on here and having this conversation. I always appreciate the welcome I get out here. And if you've never gotten the chance to see a Grand and you find one coming near you, even if you're not one of our retriever guys, go and check it out. It's mind-blowing what it is. And if you are a retriever guy, you have to go and check it out if it's near you, because it will make you a better handler, it'll make you a better trainer, and it'll make your dogs better too.
Domenick, thanks for having me on, and we always enjoy the support that we receive from our registry with UKC, and we're glad to have you here anytime.
Well, thank you.
With Eukanuba, I've found digestibility is as good as it gets. I've also discovered daily rations are less, with a solid stool and no waste. I've not had a dog that doesn't like it or that hasn't performed as good or better on Eukanuba. But don't take my word for it, folks. Give it a try. Eukanuba, the official performance dog nutrition partner of UKC.
I hope you guys enjoyed that little chat with Tracey. Now let's go out to the field and talk to each one of these judges at each of the sites here. To see videos of each one of these test sites as well as the judges' sheets, be sure to check out the UKC YouTube page. A link will be in the description of this episode. I'm here at the Priefert land site, and I'm joined with Judge Jack Gravely. Jack, tell me a little bit about y'all's test here and some of your bird placement.
We've got a round the horn triple from left to right. First bird out on the left is at 91 yards. It's through like several cover strips. The middle bird is 127 yards, and it is landed in the cover, but it's like 10 cover strips away from the line. And through a little valley, the right hand bird is down the hill, and the bird is landing right in the bottom at the hill, and it's thrown from left to right at 71 yards. Most of the dogs have done pretty good. It's the go bird. There's some that have struggled still. They want to overrun the bird. The middle bird, they want to stop and hunt early, most of them that have not done well on it. But the left-hand bird has been our real meat in this test because most of the dogs have had to hunt it. Only a few, and we've lost several dogs on that left-hand mark. They're just struggling to find it.
Yeah.
You can well see all birds. They're all skylighted above the tree lines. It's just the bird placement in this one with the cover strips, and the dogs are struggling to find it.
Gotcha. I noticed you guys have that blind kind of backside on that third mark on the right-hand side. Do dogs tend to suck a little bit towards that right mark any on that, or are they holding true on that blind?
They're holding true. We haven't had hardly any dog that's really sucked. You can see the small trees out there. We haven't had a dog that was out to the right of the furthest right tree. They've all stayed within that area. If anything, they want to go back up the hill more than they do to suck down the hill towards the blind.
And that's interesting. Yeah, when I walked up to this test and saw all the mode strips, I got intimidated. I don't even have a dog out here. This is an intimidating field just to look at and think you got to run it, no matter where the marks are at. For sure. Well, very nice test, and I look forward to seeing some of these dogs work.
Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you. I'm here at the Banded Water site with Tim Bach. I'm going to talk to Tim a little bit about his setup here. Tim, what are you seeing some of these dogs do, and why'd you put some of these birds where you did?
What we're seeing specifically on our second bird, we placed it where it's at to really help set up our blind. It's an under the arc blind with that mark being an influence, because the dogs are having to pick that bird up first and then go right back to almost to the same area to pick the blind up. So it's more of an influential thing for that placement. And then we actually placed one over on the left-hand side, which is a little shorter bird in a little pocket. And it gives dogs a challenge, even though it's only 36, 37 yards. It's been giving the dogs a little bit of challenge because it's kind of in a shady area. Our right-hand bird is a down-the-shore type, parallel down-the-shore bird, and it causes some of the dogs to cheat, and when they do cheat, they're getting lost.
Okay. Yeah, it's a nice little pond in here. I mean, it definitely looks like something you would duck hunt in. And
we've actually had some ducks over the past couple of days actually come in and try to light in the pond while we're here working and setting up. So yeah, it's definitely a duck hunting hole.
Definitely. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time, and look forward to seeing some of these dogs work.
Thank you.
I'm here at the Avery water site with Judge Robert Archer. Robert, can you tell me a little bit about your marks here and what drove you guys to putting them where they're at?
Sure. This is a typical wood duck hole, sometimes mallard hole, but a perfect duck hunting hole. Small, but very workable. Our first bird coming to the left because typically your first bird's going to be a shorter one. That's the first one you got. And it gets a little bit longer on the second bird because it's getting flaring a little bit, so we got that second bird done. Then we got a longer bird that almost got away from us out here, and we got him. And they all fall in pretty good little locations. They all got some cover around them. And then our blind is set there. This right-hand mark pretty much sets that blind up. That's our suction, plus some other things. You know, we put some factors out here to kind of get the dog's attention. But our longest mark is 50 yards and our blind is 54. So it's very, very typical of a duck hunting situation.
Sure. And where are you seeing some of these dogs struggle? Is there a certain mark in particular, or is it kind of all over?
It's been a little bit all over. It certainly was earlier. They're starting to figure it out. Our middle mark seems to be one of our toughest ones because they don't want to dig up that hill.
Mm-hmm.
But we're giving them time to work it out, as long as they don't get too far out of shape.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely like this site. I mean, it looks like if you had a dry summer or something, it wouldn't even be a water hole. But right now you look at it, and it looks ducky. I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was over at Bandit a little bit ago, and they were talking about they had some birds flaring when they were trying to set their tests up the past couple of days. And
we've had a few in here.
Yeah, it definitely looks like you would.
Yes.
All right, well, I appreciate the time and look forward to seeing these dogs work.
Sure thing. Thanks for being here.
I'm here at the Bradshaw land test at the 2024 Fall Grand, and I'm joined with Dana Giovanello. He's one of our judges at this course. And Dana, tell me a little bit about y'all's test and where you're seeing the biggest piece of this test challenge dogs.
Okay, we've got a great piece of land that's got ups and downs and valleys and everything, and first mark comes out, it's decent, very visible. Second mark, they got to get that dog to look out long. It's 156 yards, and it's breaking the skyline, but some of the dogs are just not turning on that bird. And even if they do turn on that bird and see it, what's going to happen is they're going to start climbing that ridge right there, and then they're going to square it and come up, and they're going to be short of the bird. So then they got to figure out, okay, do I go left or right? And then if they go right, they're in the wrong place. If they go left, they can usually work it out. And that's what's been happening to most of the dogs. They've been able to work it out so far.
Yeah, and I noticed earlier this morning there really wasn't much wind or anything, and I see the wind starting to blow the streamers just a little bit now, but yeah, there's not much chance of a wind save unless this wind picks up either.
That's correct. And they're not calling for really wind this whole week. So it's going to be a dog is going to have to see that bird and persevere and climb up that hill in an angle and go get that bird.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And they just got back with the rebirds, so we're going to see the next dog run.
All right.
I'm here at the Dive Bomb water site, joined with Judge John Potcutter. John, do you mind telling me a little bit about y'all's bird placement at this test and where you saw dogs struggle the most?
Our first bird is coming out left to right, landing at 55 yards with a splash and some decoys. So the dogs weren't actually differentiating the difference between the decoy and the duck. So a lot of them were swimming by it and driving up the hill and swimming right by the bird. Our second bird is placed at 77 yards, slight angle back, left to right, and the dogs have to drive out of the water and drive up the hill and pick up the bird. If they square the hill coming out, that's where they drive past the bird and have to recover when they're deep of it hunting. And our third bird is at 138 yards, an angle back from right to left, and the factors on that mark is, of course, the log and the distance of the swim across the pond. So a lot of dogs were avoiding the long swim on the go bird, squaring the hill with the shorter swim, and ended up trying to pick up two. And then coming back if they successfully picked up bird two, then they had to come back and accomplish that long swim again with a lot of memory this time, because that's the go bird, to actually retrieve that bird.
Sure. And you guys have a nice little blind over here too. The looks like it's a small little pocket of water, cheaty look, and then hop out here on a point and then swim all the way over to it.
Yes, we have. We're running about 10 yards of land, get in the water, and then we're asking the dog to get back out of the water, get on a point. And water to a dog is normally they're thinking it's safe. It's easier for a dog to run on land than it is to swim in water. So then we're asking the dog to cross that piece of land, get back in the water, and hold that line for about 60, 70 yards swim, and drive up the bank, and trying to keep them in a straight line from that point to the blind.
Sure. Something interesting I saw with some of these dogs here is on that first bird out from the line. It looks like it's pretty straightforward, but when I was looking at your judges' sheets, you realize how shallow of an entry that is from the bank to the water, and I saw a lot of dogs check up at that bank. Did you see a lot of that, or is that just when I was here?
Yes, some of the dogs were catching some drag back from the entry edge of the bank, which confused some of them, so they put on a little hunt right there. Some of them worked it out, and some of them actually never recovered. So it's either you've seen that picture and seen that bird and picked it up clean, or a lot of dogs had trouble on that mark, which really surprised me. But
sure. Well, it was a very nice test. I enjoyed watching it.
I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here at the Garmin land test site, joined by Judge Jamie Moss. And Jamie, tell me a little bit about your bird placement here and where you've seen dogs struggle the most.
Okay, we have an indented triple set up today with a short bird at about 85 yards, a right-hand bird at about 100, and a longer go bird at about 135. A lot of dogs there's a ditch that splits the field. A lot of dogs have hunted short on both the outside marks. They're succumbing to the factors of the downhill and the ditch factor, but most of them have been able to dig themselves out of the hole, pull that out. The short bird has caused some problems. Some dogs will tend to want to run over the top of that short bird, miss it, but fortunately we have a wind at our back, and if they'll stop and slow down, they've been able to sniff that bird out as they return. The right-hand bird, dogs are struggling they want to square the ditch as they exit, which puts them running right at the gun hide. And to the left of the bird, we've had a lot of dogs get completely out of sight behind that gun hide, and if they get back there, that's no man's land. They're really struggling to get out.
Sure. What about that long bird? Has that one been giving dogs any trouble?
The longer go bird we've had one or two dogs handle on it. Well, probably more than one or two, but overall they're picking it up pretty nicely, and the dog are actually doing a really nice job. As I said, there's a little impression there, and they want to hunt that impression short, but they're not spending any time in there. They seem to figure it out pretty quickly. I would imagine there's some drag back scent where the dogs in front of them are coming through that taller grass, and they're hitting the drag back, but these dogs are so smart, they figure out pretty quickly that's drag back scent, not the duck, and they push on back and get the bird.
Very good. And when I first walked up here, somebody was in the middle of running their blind, and they had just started. They just kicked the dog off on the blind, and I was looking out there, and I couldn't figure out where they were going to run to. I didn't see the blind stake, and then I narrowed in on it. You guys got a nice little keyhole blind back there, kind of backside of that long bird, huh?
It is, and that's a really challenging blind. That's a blind that it really puts a lot of challenge on the task of the handler to maintain and keep into that area between those trees and hit that keyhole. So a lot of dogs want to run down to that tree line, and they don't want to punch through those trees.
Sure.
So they're having to get a cast right or left through the trees if they're lucky enough to make the trees. But again, you have the ditch as a factor. You have a downhill slope on one side, and then that downhill slope reverses as they get nearer to the blind. So and then a quite inconspicuous blind stake. We've got it hidden really well, so that it looks very natural, and that makes it really tough for the dogs. They can't pick out, there's the blind pole. These dogs are smart. They don't see this blind pole. We've had one dog line this blind all day, which is pretty remarkable given the talent level of these dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's everyone always says distance of roads control, and you guys have that keyhole right there at the end of the blind too. So
right,
that's a meaty blind, but I definitely like it.
Yeah, it's a grand level blind for sure, but these grand dogs can handle that work, and that's what they're here to prove. And the grand dogs, they've done really well. I mean, we've had a lot of dogs come up, and we've had several 2 and 3 whistle that blind, but only one line it. So it's been a difficult blind for sure.
Well, good deal. I like the test, and I've enjoyed watching some of these dogs on it.
Well, great to have you.
Thank you. I'm here at the Gunners Up land site, and I'm joined with Judge Sonia Edwards, and she's going to tell us a little bit about some of our bird placement here and what are the factors with some of these marks and blind. Sonia, what are you seeing out of these dogs, and what's the reason behind some of these bird placements?
Well, we've got a really nice field here with good terrain, some some changes in terrain, some hills, and kind of on top of a ridge here. Our right bird is our first bird out, and it's being thrown to 142 yards from the line, a little bit angled back and right to left. Our left bird out is thrown kind of into part of the checkerboard pattern in the field, and to some cover below the crown of the hill. We didn't want to be losing dogs over the top of the hill, and that mark is at 100 yards. Our third mark is in front of some trees in the middle of the field, and it's a left to right throw at 85 yards. That particular mark particularly influences the blind. When they do run the blind goes past that old fall at 150 yards, and just to the right from our perspective of the tree line, the trees that are in the middle of the field. They get a diversion on the way back from the third mark. We haven't seen any dogs have any trouble over that. Biggest issues we've had has been with our right bird. Some of the dogs are either hunting short or really too deep. And on our blind, it's just been seeing some folks not challenging the blind, or the dogs caving into that old fall area there.
Gotcha. And I know with some of these other field sites, the wind was dead early this morning, but I know it's starting to pick up a little bit some as we get into the afternoon. Has that been adding to any of the factors here for the dogs?
I think it is. I think the wind is helping the dogs.
Okay.
I think with the cover that we've had with the cover we had this morning and the lack of wind, they weren't seeing, they weren't smelling the birds, so their noses were not helping them out.
Yeah, I see out here you got the strips and checkerboard mowed into the field, and I was just out at, I think it was Priefert land site. They've got a lot thicker cover in between their checker. They got some mowed strips, but it makes it look intimidating when you walk out to it. And here, you almost can't tell that some of these strips are here, but those dogs definitely, I'm sure,
they're
are
noticing it when they get to them. Yeah, yeah, and some of them want to go just check out some of the cover. Where this long bird is landing actually is not a lot of cover, but they've got to bust through a little bit to get to it.
Sure.
So it's not, once they're there, they can see it, but they've got to bust through the cover to get to it. We did have one bird, one of my favorites today. We did have one dog coming back from the first bird, had a wing over his eye and took out two of our goose decoys. And just kept coming. But, those kind of little incidents always give us a little bit of humor during the day.
Sure,
a long day.
Well, great test here, and I look forward to seeing some of the dogs work on it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'm here at the Heul's oil water site, and I'm joined by Judge Benny Landry. Now, with a last name like Landry, you're probably going to be able to guess about what he's going to sound like here. But he's going to talk to us a little bit about his bird placement and what drove these judges to put the birds where they're at, and a little bit about where these dogs are struggling some. Benny, would you mind talking about your bird some?
So bird one comes off from left to right. It's angled back. It's going to be a memory bird, and the objective of this bird is to see a dog drive over dry land, go through cover, and go up against cover and find the bird and deliver the hand. Bird number two is off to the right, and it goes from right to left. It falls in a little pocket, and there's land all around it, and we want to see if the dog can stay in the water, drive directly to the area to fall, establish a hunt, and bring the bird back. Bird number two also sets up the blind. The line is very similar, so later on when he'll be running the blind, he has to go up to almost where he picked up that mark and drive up the hill on command from the handler and pick up the blind. Bird three, we drive across open water. The bird falls behind cover on the edge of a levee. The dog has to mark it because there's so much cover in the area that he has to know where it is or he won't be able to find it. And same objective is go through the cover around the branch and keep in memory where the bird is and deliver the hand.
Very good. And where are you seeing some of these dogs struggle? Is there any one spot, or is it kind of well-rounded on this test? It's a nice test.
It seems like the bird 2 is the one they've been struggling with yesterday. And earlier today, it was bird 1 is the memory bird they struggled with. The dogs would get up on the island and find a drag back from the other dogs, and they'd get hung up in it. And then the handler would have to direct them to the mark.
Sure. And it's a relatively short test in here. What are some of your distances on some of these marks here?
62 yards is the furthest one. That's the go bird. And the left-hand bird is about 56 yards. And the right-hand bird, which is number 2, is 56 birds also.
Very nice. Well,
and the blind's at 72 yards.
Yeah, this is a fun test to watch. It's very, it gives me the sensation of a little wood duck or a little mallard hunt here on this little point, and how everything's kind of dropping in some cover. I like it. Very nice test, and I've enjoyed watching these dogs on it. Thank you, Benny.
Thank you.
Alan, I know we both have new Dogtra Pathfinder 2s. How are you liking yours so far?
I'm liking it. I've even had the opportunity now to use mine where I didn't have service, where I download the map of that area, and it works flawlessly. Love it.
I agree. I really like my Dogtra Pathfinder 2 as well. I've used it quite a bit the past few months. I really like the crystal clear maps. I like that it doesn't lose service very much, and I don't have many bad things to say about it at all. Dogtra Pathfinder 2, the official GPS collar partner of UKC.
I'm here at the Lucky Duck Water Test Site with Judge Denise Gordy. Denise, would you mind telling me a little bit about your bird placement here and where you might have seen some of the dogs struggle, and is that what you kind of anticipated?
We did kind of anticipate on the long mark having a little bit of trouble, and some on this mark, but not as much. We were our blind was hot, so we were just had a little anticipation, but everything worked out well on that. So all the marks and stuff that I think were really well placed.
Okay. So where did dogs, besides the long mark, did you see any dogs struggling with that down the shore mark or going back to that blind over the
going back
O-fall?
to the blind over the O-fall.
Okay. Well, they're a little bit hesitant about going out that way.
Yeah, especially the younger dogs.
Mm-hmm. You know, you got a pretty unique piece of land here. It's almost like you got a lagoon off of a much bigger lake.
Right.
You have a nice little tree line out there in the middle of the water to break up the picture. When I first walked out here, I was wondering, would that first far left mark have messed with some of the dogs if they had that picture of the big water behind it? Might have intimidated them some.
It possibly could.
But yeah, you definitely have a nice unique piece over here, especially with that dry bird over there for that long bird.
Right.
The dog's got a nice little mix of some looks. I like it over here.
Right.
Very nice test. Well, I enjoyed watching the dogs work over here. And
thank you so much for coming by.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I'm here at the Purina land site. I'm joined with Judge Randy McLean. Randy, tell me a little bit about y'all's tests and why you put birds where you did.
Hey guys, how you doing today? Me and my co-judge Tim Sosi came out here and we've placed decoys in front of everything to kind of give the dogs a little obstacle to get through. Our left mark comes out first, left to right. It's at 108 yards. There's a lot of mowed paths out here, so dogs take the mowed path to glory sometimes. These are grand level dogs. We want to see how they work. They pick that bird up, come back in, our middle bird. Our grand sponsor, our grand committee member, Mike Botts, has helped brush everything in. All of our grand committee members, site coordinators have helped us. We're looking for the dog to go directly to the mark. The wind plays a little factor. It swirls and things, but the dogs seem to do pretty well with it. Our right mark's at 61 yards. Again, we have decoys out there. The mowed path to glory. They strip mowed all this ground. They go out there, they pick it up, come back. Our blind is 107 yards across the top of the hill. You might see it out there with the orange flagging. So they make it through all this. They make it through the blind. They've got them a pass for one day of the Grand.
Gotcha. And so that right-hand bird, is that getting thrown right to left?
Yes, sir. It's going right to left at 61 yards. There's a little fall on the hill, and the dogs are seeing it really well. We've had a good day.
Is that Mark having some influence on that blind some? Or
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It does. It makes the dogs want to pull back to the right a little bit because they remember going over there and there's with the wind swirling, there may be a little scent. So you're looking for a little suction there to keep them from just running straight to the blind.
Sure thing. And I do notice you guys have an extra brush pile put up right in line with that deep bird. Is that to create a little depth perception?
Yes, sir.
For
It's for depth perception, and it helps pull the dogs a little bit. It's suction again to where when they take off for the left bird over here, they see the brush pile, and dogs are pretty smart at this level. They see where the winger stations are sometimes, and that fools them to think, oh, there's another one out here. So it makes them want to pull over here. Again, the grand level dogs, you want to see them run directly to the area to fall and pick the mark up. So these little things that cause suction help make it a little more challenging.
Sure thing. Well, very nice test, and I look forward to seeing some dogs on it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. Be sure to give us a follow so you don't miss any of our new episodes or content.